All righty. Josh, welcome.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, welcome to EMS Office Hours. I am Jim Hoffman, of course.
And I'm Josh Knapp, as
And
always.
wanted to jump on today, Josh. I know we haven't been hopping on here as much lately on the podcasting platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I've been super busy and kind of putting my efforts into all this into other avenues. So I know
Yeah, you've been talking about that.
you've been busy.
Offline anyway.
Yeah, I keep it secret till it's time to come out. And I just want to tell everybody, um, if you're joining me on Facebook or the YouTubes or whatever, uh, nobody has to go buy the Mega Millions tonight for the
Oh.
drawing tonight. I already have the winning ticket,
Mm-hmm.
so everybody can just got to go waste your money and sit there picking out your secret numbers and what's going to help you out or whatever. Because I got the winning numbers yesterday when I went and got my drawing for the $1 billion.
I only have one question, or observation. If nobody else buys a ticket and you're the only one that buys a ticket, your odds still don't increase in you winning.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter. I have the winning numbers.
It matters not at all.
You're
You're just trying to save people from saving money.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's just me buying a ticket or another million people buying. It doesn't make a difference because I'm pretty confident I'm going to win this time. I've already spent half the money, so
okay.
I spent half the money already, so I'm well on my way.
I'd like to have half the money in that thing on draw somewhere where I could even spend it. I mean, I don't even have that.
I'm already going to take it. I'm going to buy an ambulance, and I'm going to buy a bunch of equipment, and then just drive around town helping people. No, I'm not doing
All
that.
right.
I'm not doing that either.
Well, that could be actually, that could segue interestingly enough into that article I found, which confuses the hell out of me.
You talking about the one with the baby?
Yeah, the one with the baby and the single provider.
Yeah,
it's like drives and leaves.
I guess this is in New Zealand, though, right?
I wasn't sure if it was in New Zealand. Did I email that to you?
Not NZ, and it's the NZ Herald, which I'm guessing stands for New Zealand. Yeah.
I sent that to you though, didn't
I? I got
email.
I'm gonna put it in the comments just so anybody that's looking here, they can actually pull up if they want.
Follow along with our craziness
as we're discussing. But I understand. I get the whole thing about blow by oxygen. The kid was cyanotic. They should have done different interventions. Ventilating the newborn and all that. Maybe even doing CPR. Most protocols will tell you this. Start doing CPR depending upon heart rate and respiratory rate and all that stuff. But I was also, for me, the biggest thing, the biggest confusion was the element of how the paramedic was by themselves driving the birthing person to the hospital, and then them giving birth in the back, and you had to pull over, help them deliver, and then I'm headed off.
Gotta go back driving again.
Gotta go back to drive. So you stay here with the baby, and good luck with that. And then give the blow by oxygen, which is like a standard thing. Most guidelines and protocols will say that's what you do for pretty much a lot of newborns. But then when she's the mother's expressing concern that the kid's not really crying and doesn't seem to be breathing very well, I guess the right thing to do would have been to pull over again and reassess what was going on, the one thing that I mean, maybe that's the way they do it there, and I guess that's one of the reasons why. I mean, I just saw something somewhere where there's a town in the U.S. somewhere where they are going to have it where the minimum is going to be an EMT and a driver. You know, so the EMT can get
That's
back to patient.
still an operational minimum. I mean, that's
Right.
been used for years. I mean,
But what I'm
the
saying
idea.
is that at the minimum, you think that that would be at least.
No, we found a new minimum.
Yeah.
A provider and a truck.
Just as long as they're a paramedic, they can say they're the paramedic, and who knows what they do with billing. Oh, the paramedic was there, so we're going to build a shed of you at the ALS level, even though all he really did was drive.
See,
And this is why we are called. They give the whole back to the ambulance driver part, right? The ambulance driver, because in this case, that's end up being the main thing that they did. The one thing that I find in the article that is just so stupid is that when they talk about what the paramedic should have done was to, I'm trying to find the exact wording here, but what he should have done was realize, he should have administered oxygen by manual ventilation over the bag and continued to do so until arriving at the hospital. How the fuck is he going to do that? How's he going to drive and assist manual ventilations on the way to the hospital? How's that supposed to happen?
Have you ever driven someplace with your dog and you drive around and the dog sits on your lap and pretends it's steering?
Yeah. So I guess that's what he wants to do, right? He's going to go ahead and end up, putting the baby in the passenger seat and then trying to ventilate the patient as he's driving with his other hand. I don't know. It's a very odd thing. Of course, now this medic is in trouble for not recognizing or not doing the intervention more properly. Listen, this medic is pretty much done for his career. It says 2019, he stopped being a paramedic as of 2019 and hasn't worked in the healthcare field.
So this is an old article.
It's old. The article itself, no, the article is new. But I guess because, the baby didn't die, but it's got brain damage for lack of oxygen. And now I guess it's making headlines here in this magazine, in this area here, because of, the fact that, the kid's brain damage. But the paramedic themselves has finished their employment. It says 2019, and that he hasn't worked in healthcare since for a variety of reason. And this is a big thing. This issue that happened with the baby is gave him a lot of stress, and the complaints that's been going on. I guess the investigation on himself has affected his personal health and well-being. So I encourage people to go look at that article. I think it's in. The article is very basic, and I think anyone reading it, especially in the U.S., will be like, "What the hell is going on? Why would that even happen?"
Right.
But I think it's important for people to kind of see that, even for me, over the years, Josh, doing this podcast, dealing with other EMS professionals and educators and students and all that stuff, back in the day, as a New York City medic, you kind of get just sort of the one lens you're looking at of EMS, how things are done in New York City, how things are done in the 5 boroughs, stuff like that. When I started doing the podcast and meeting people from Wisconsin and California and all over the country, it opened my view to how EMS is done in many different areas, and in addition to that, how it's actually taught in a lot of different areas, right? The way it gets, EMS is instructed in New York City is different than other places. The bones are there, right? Of
Mhm.
EMT training and paramedic training, but the approach a lot of times is different. I mean, North Carolina, for instance, when I worked in North Carolina for a little bit, that training was different than what I experienced in New York City. It was a
Mhm.
different approach to it. And when I looked at the training in North Carolina, how they train new paramedics, just the new approach to how they were teaching medics was different than what I had ever experienced. So, like I said, I think an article like this gives people an opportunity to see EMS from a different point of view, and that's something I see a lot on Facebook too, where people will make comments about an article they see in EMS One or an article they see, EMS in general, or comment that somebody makes on a Facebook post, and people are responding based on their sort of one view of it because of their own person. It's not that they're wrong, right? They're expressing their opinion based on their view and their experience, their one experiences that they've had as an EMS provider or as a student, right? Somebody might have been taught one way and it was a horrible experience in class, and somebody else loved their classroom experience. You know what I mean? So I think an
Well,
article is good because it gives people a chance to kind of see it from a different lens too.
well, that's always the good thing, and that's one of the good things about going to these conferences and
Yes,
stuff. And when you get out of your area and you meet people from other areas, and
sure.
even if you don't have the time to go through conferencing, and we've mentioned it before on the show, they are our favorite U.S. government has a lot of free training for that free training where they fly you out to another location, teach you with some of the best instructors in the world and some of the best equipment in the world, and pay for everything, including snacks. So, I mean, what more
Yes.
can you say to an EMT or paramedic? Snacks are included.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? It's I think that goes with a lot of what we talk about and a lot of things that even I stress on a lot of the social media posts I make and stuff is that you have to seek some of this stuff out. You can't just sit back and go, okay, I'm just going to take the CME that my agency offers and just kind of get through it, and that's going to make me a great EMS, provider. You have to
No.
seek out other opportunities, and one of them is like you mentioned, right? The stuff that's paid for, where you can go and have training by people from other areas and other, other viewpoints on things that go on in EMS, and even like you said too, the conferences that you can go to and you can get CME and stuff from other people that are you never would have met otherwise.
And lifetime experiences, because
Sure.
you'll never
And a,
do this
and a
training
lot of
anywhere else.
agencies, believe it or not, which I found out later on in my EMS career, is that you could actually get your agency to pay you to go to conferences. Reimburse you for. They have a certain amount in the budget.
Mhm.
I had found that out once. I had a supervisor that was always going to conferences. He's going to conference, going. I finally said to the manager, I was like, "Why is this guy always going to conferences constantly?" And he's like, "Well, the manager's like, well, it's in the budget. You can go too. You just got to find out when the conference is and request, for us to do it. We have a certain amount in the budget. He's going all the time because he knows it's in the budget, and he applies for it, and off he goes.
Mhm.
You know,
But,
so
they don't share that as a sort of public service amongst their employees
right,
to say, "Hey,
exactly.
we have this in the budget, there's limited space, but sign up early and you'll
Right.
get to
They can
go."
send most of the time. They can send 2, 3 people to a conference.
Mhm.
That's what I was told. You
Yep.
know,
Oh,
um,
in some departments, I've been down to, through the Department of Homeland Security, the the domestic preparedness Office of Domestic Preparedness. I've been down there with New York City ESU cops, and they send a dozen down at a time. Now that's a hell of a budget. Now I know that we may have a budget for 2 people, but it's, get through the red tape and get going. But even if you can't, what I did when I first started as an EMT is I took my vacation time. I mean, literally, these courses are 5 days, 6 days. They fly you in, they fly you out. They understand that that you have a job and you have to be there for the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a pretty good situation.
Sure. One thing I want to mention, Josh, before we go any further, I have a little bit of a this collaboration that I'm doing with Squadia.com. It's SQADIA.com, and they have, it's sort of like a Netflix for medical videos, and I have a little collaboration with them where they have like a 14-day free access, but if people go use the code Squadia EMS, SQADIA EMS, as the promo code, they'll get another 30 days. So they get 45 days of free access to all the videos. There's about 1,800 plus videos. They're adding new videos all the time. I've been talking to the doc that runs it a few times already, and a lot of great content. I actually went in there, looked at a lot of the videos, and some of it's sort of, it's not really EMS. They have stuff in there for dentists and some more very clinical type stuff at the physician level. But there is a ton of stuff in there that EMS professionals can really get a benefit from. And one thing that I like about it, and I've always liked this, and this is why I do it with TurboMedic, and I've done it on my website, is that they break the videos down to nice small chunks. So they're short videos, so you're not sitting there watching a 60-minute lecture on something, where they can break it down to a much shorter lecture. They do a lot of animation and stuff like that. So I really like the platform. So just wanted to let people know, I've sent an email out to my membership a few times, but I figured since we're doing a Facebook Live, again, it's SQADIA.com, Squadia.com, and use Squadia EMS as a promo code, and you'll get 30 days on top of the 15 that they already offer you as a trial there. So go check that out if you're at all interested in that. The other thing they do too is, if you watch the video, they have like a text version of what's going on in the video, and then they have a resource section for that video. And the resource section will give you sort of like a download of the key points going on in that video, which is really great, because now you can add that PDF to like your EMS library and go back and refer to it later on when you're studying, or you have a patient you didn't quite get or whatever, and kind of really go ahead and get an idea, on that too. So really great stuff there. I think it's definitely worth it to go check out. So if you're watching this, guys, go and check that out. Again, it's Squadia.com, and just use Squadia EMS as your promo code.
Hey, Jim, I'm having a technical issue here. I can't share on the comments section, but I sent through private chat the Center for Domestic Preparedness, where anybody listening to this can go to the website and you can see the calendar, you can see what's options, you can see the requirements. So
we try to
throw that up there.
See if I can pop it in. I'm not sure why you can't. You can't put anything in the comments at all?
No. I maybe because whatever. It doesn't matter right now. For anybody, it's https://cdp.dhs.gov.
Yeah,
and that's the Center for Domestic Preparedness.
I do it in a chat, and then when I post this on the blog, I'll make sure to put it there as well.
Back to it, Big Dave. Join us.
What's that? Chopping up. Josh has a crappy internet connection today. He keeps dropping off on me.
Hello.
Hey.
I was saying how I miss Dave. You know, these are the days
Yeah.
that I miss
I
Dave.
sent Dave an invite, but it was kind of short notice. I know you
Yeah, and he's kind of
early in the week. So, Judge, I want to just take my take on it, and then you can let me know your take on it. And
well, I was thinking that, and that's the only way I was reminiscing there with Dave, is that he would look this up and know, you know, because he teaches his 12 lead all over to different EMS groups all around the country. He might know of other systems that do this type of. I can't imagine any place in the States. I thought we were like a 2-person. You know, you had to have 2 people, at least somebody to drive, some professional, in quote unquote professional, to drive, and somebody to tech.
Yeah.
You know, how would, you know, throwing, I mean, that's like throwing somebody in a wheelbarrow and running them.
I know. Let me ask you this, Josh. You know, one of the things that I love about EMS and being in the ambulance with one other person is
the sandwiches.
The sandwiches are always amazing, especially the ones from the hospital. You get in the refrigerator; they're kind of soggy. You know,
oh yeah, you know, yeah.
But one thing that I love is going a little bit beyond EMS with people that I work with. That you have your regular partners, you kind of find out a lot of their personal information and what they're passionate about and where, you know, what they like doing, the calls they like, the experience that they have and all that type of stuff. But one thing that I always enjoy, and I don't know if you take advantage of this or not, you know, is when I work with somebody that I've never worked with before, I like finding out stuff about them that is that's outside EMS. You know, what do they like to read? What kind of movies do they like? What kind of, you know, car do they drive? Do they like that car? What cars have they driven in the past? All kinds of little personal things without going too deep, you know, personal wise. But I always like sharing that sort of element with people that I've worked with, you know, especially when I work with them for the first time. I find that doing that beyond just asking them, you know, where they worked before, how many years they've been in EMS, all that type of crap, finding some of the personal things out about them. I mean, I don't just bang into them and they get in the ambulance. You know, you married? How many kids you have? You know, as throughout the shift, you find out little nuggets of information and you share little nuggets of information back and forth. And I've always found that was a great way to bond with them and almost build that trust with them, which I found made it easier on actual calls, right? You're doing a call, and I always found that it made the calls go smoother because it wasn't like you were strangers anymore in the ambulance. And I think that is one of the big things, I think, when you work with somebody new, even if it's just for that day, they're covering for somebody or whatever, is there's always that little bit of, you know, standoffishness that goes on. And when you're on calls with someone like that and you don't have any kind of rapport at all with them, you end up, the call is doesn't run as smoothly, you know?
Of course.
I think when you have a little bit of rapport, like I said, and you kind of get to know them a little bit, and you share some of your own information and all, I find that it really does help the calls go much smoother, and it actually makes the day much more enjoyable.
Now, how do you think that is? I'm not even going to talk about going into why that isn't today. Not right this second, but why do you think that when you get to know your partner, that things run smoother?
Well, like I said, I think there's a trust issue there. I think the trust is built up better. I think there's more comfort involved because you sort of have the person becomes more human to you.
How about just empathy?
Yeah.
to where that person, because, almost every call has its own version of a stress scenario,
Yeah.
whether it's just, somebody calling you because they had a stomach ache yesterday and they feel fine today, but they had a stomach ache yesterday. And that sort of stress of the nonsense call, to somebody who is calling you 3 days too late, for
Yeah.
difficulty breathing or something like that.
Yeah.
They
Well,
thought it would just go away. So that's its own sense of stress.
sure. Oh, I
But
think, and I think one thing that I've always told people, and something that I should have done this early on in my career and stuff, and even as a preceptor and everything, is to find out where that person is that day. Where's, like, kind of in the beginning of the shift, is sort of like, where are you at today? Like you said, are you coming off an illness? Are you having personal problems at home that might affect your day today? So not necessarily I want you to share that, that much with me as far as that goes. You can just say, oh, I got a lot of shit going on at home, and I'm not really 100% today. And it kind of lets as a partner that there's going to be some challenge, I guess, on calls with that person for that day because they're not 100%.
Mhm.
Also lets you sort of, like you said, have the empathy with them that, what, I've had bad days too, and I didn't really want to come to work. I'd rather just sit home under the covers and cry myself to sleep, but I'm dragging myself into work because it's my job and I have to get paid. I don't want to take a day off, stuff like that. So I just wonder, and I would always ask even my regular partner those questions sometimes too, like, how you doing today? What's going on, whatever, in the very beginning of the shift while you're checking out the ambulance, and it kind of gives them the opportunity to tell you everything's fine. I'm great, whatever, versus, oh, I had a shitty weekend. This happened, that happened, my wife, my kid, my car, my dog, whatever. And then this way, if they seem a little bit off, that the reason why that might be going on, you know. And I've seen that, I've heard of companies that do that when they have like a company meeting, they go around the table and check in with everybody before they go on with the meeting so that they know where everybody is at. This is like just a regular corporate business type thing.
Right. But that's a different scenario.
Small level, small level with your partner on the ambulance.
That's a bigger, the difference about that, the corporate meeting scenario is that you have the pressure of, your employment in the corporation and how you look amongst your coworkers in a group. Now, we all know that when you get into a partner situation, there's a much more intimate bond that has to occur, that just does, or intimate relationship. I don't want to say bond, because bond means that you guys are sort of seeing each other, working together and stuff like that.
What's that in the background?
What?
What's that in the background?
It's the song of my people.
Did you plan that shit?
I must have, because I'm out.
5 minutes after
I am out in the country. I have never seen an ambulance.
They come to your house.
It's a fire. No, it's a fire truck.
Oh, all right.
It's a fire truck. I have yet to ever seen Anyway, about the country, as you can tell by the green trees around me, not the sirens of the city. But the thing is, Jim, is like, now you haven't been on the bus for what, 4 years?
4 years.
When was the last time you were on the bus?
I don't know, fucking not even a year ago.
You weren't there during fire truck pulling up by you? No. I saw another. So I'm out here in the sticks, and of course it's a volunteer. So I saw one of the guys in his pickup truck with this blue light on, running down the road as well. So
Yes.
Miss those good old days. But the thing that's happened, and the thing that I noticed that happened, uh, from the last time I was on the bus for the last 5, 6 years, is that people could get on the bus. I mean, you'd you'd have your regular partners, and you discuss what was going on, where you got parking, where you wanted to go for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, depending on what your shift
Yeah.
was. And you'd have that conversation, and then you'd go on to the day. And if something, if they wanted to talk, they wanted to talk. But nowadays, it's like you get on and you look at your partner, and they're,
Yeah, of
you
course.
know, I mean, it's like, hey, what's going on? You want to
Yeah.
go for dinner someplace? Yeah, wherever you want.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
what I think
where's the communication? Where's the communication that happens with
well,
that?
that's what I think is, you have to sort of, I guess you have to gauge the personality type, right? Some partners will do that. They'll be glued to their phone. They don't want to really engage, and you're sort of like this, you're just a partner for the day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Fresh
Um,
meat.
yeah. So you do have to.
FNG.
It's all about building that rapport with somebody, and sometimes it takes a little work, to do that. you know. And I think depending upon the partner you have, if there's chances of you working with them again, if there's a chance that if you know of you encountering something that you need to clear with them first, um, you might have to push a little harder. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if it's going
Mm-hmm.
to be an 8 hour shift with them, and you can just do the basics, like you said, where we eating, when you gotta go to the bathroom, stuff like that, then maybe you don't have to push as hard. You get through the shift. It depends upon yourself. But what I was trying to in the beginning, like I was saying, was that I like to. I think if you ask questions to somebody that goes a little bit beyond EMS and ask about their personal issues, what they like, have you seen this movie? Have you done this? Whatever. It'll get them away from the phone because now you're engaging them and asking questions. You're engaging them a little bit more than what they might be even be used to when you just where do you want to eat, stuff like that. You know.
You really think so?
Yeah, I think because you're engaging somebody a little bit more with that. Now
What
there
if
are
they
times
turn to
you're
you
gonna
and
have
say, I'm at level 5, don't bother me?
well, if that's the case, that's the case. That's fine. You know. Um, but I think that at the same time, I think that people use the phone almost as a security blanket to not converse because they're not quite sure what to say or how to engage you as this new partner, especially if you're somebody that's been doing it for a while and maybe they're not, that they're new to the game or they're new to the agency or whatever. So it's a little bit of a security thing for them to, use the phone to, kind of be there but not be there. But if you're the type can go ahead and ask questions, I think that it does help, you know, with that, you know. That's just I just wanted to kind of mention that because I feel like a lot of times, like on this show and others that I've heard and listened to, that a lot of the times it's just EMS, 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 and nobody really kind of talks about the personal sort of angle that goes on in the ambulance. And I think that's part of what the show, the EMS Office Hours, is talking about things that go on in the front of the ambulance and things that we discuss in the front of the ambulance that you don't necessarily hear in the classroom. You necessarily hear, in public because there's stuff that partners talk about that don't necessarily get shared, you know, and that could just be personal little, tidbits about their life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that's something I encourage people to engage with your partners. Don't just make it an 8 hour shift, ask some personal questions, get to know them a little bit. You don't have to get that personal, but just to ask basic, personal line questions to people and to find out where they're at and are they stressed? Are they, upset about something? All these types of things. And it shows them that you're interested in them as a person and not just, oh, how many cardiac arrest calls have you done? Or how many dead babies have you had? Because I find that that's a big thing with people. And that ends up being sort of like the experience pissing contest of who's got more experience, doing something. You know what I mean? So that's just my quick take on that, Josh. I think I'm losing you again here, brother.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're
I
back.
can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a nuance to what you're saying, in the sense that, not everything's going to happen just because you jump on and you're all chatty. And in some cases, not reading the room, coming on all chatty.
Right.
Your partner, there's this whole bravado thing of being the burnt out medic, of seeing, all the jobs and nothing excites you anymore and things like that. I can say one of the things that helps build bonds is trust. And the way that you earn that trust is by showing up with the skills for the particular job.
Sure.
So one of the things that, your partner, you may be new partners, you're sitting down, you sort of feel an uncomfortable air, you stay your side, I'll stay on my side, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But, and it doesn't mean that the opportunity is going to show itself every single job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you happen to have your skills aligned and your knowledge aligned, and you're a good practitioner, which we talk about in terms of service to yourself, service to the company, but it's also service to your partner, because there's nothing like, turning in a stressful situation where, maybe you're not the best at starting an EJ.
Mm-hmm.
Not a skill everybody does, or needle decompression or something like that.
Sure.
Not everybody's done that or has the skills or the practice or whatnot. If you get really good at that type of skill, you have it in your back pocket in the time that you're with your partner, when you're on that hot job and it needs to be done, and you work like automatic, automatic, done it 1,000 times. Your partner looks over at you and goes, okay, this person's got skills. They got something I can trust and I can back up on.
Yeah.
And that lowers the stress level. Trust me, it lowers the stress level of, how you view that new guy, how a new partner will view you. And it also breaks down that barriers, because, and we've talked about this before, Jim, it's like the toxic environments that we're finding all over the world now, in terms of, you get a couple of people who really, why are you working here other than just to cause problems? And they may tell you about your partner, they may tell your partner about you.
Right.
Your partner. So you've never met this person before, and somebody says, oh, you watch your back around them. Now that's going to be a barrier to you creating a relationship.
I've had that happen numerous times where I've had people say something bad about somebody that's being hired, and they were at wherever, and and I just I right away you're sitting there kind of
on guard
about the person, and then I find when I start working with them, I find the total opposite.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've never taken somebody and said, oh, this is the way that it is, and I'm gonna immediately not trust them, and that's it. You know what I mean? So, and Dave is popping in here.
Dave joins us for the last half hour.
I just found it. Fancy green screen background.
Like it. Like the EMS, the Star of Life.
Nice, huh?
Yeah.
So, and now
like my fancy background?
That's nice too.
It's a green screen too.
I will say that now that Dave is here, and this is something I think, Josh, I want to kind of talk about this because it kind of goes what we were just talking about with meeting a partner and engaging in conversation. You mentioned something, Josh, about coming on and knowing sort of your role and knowing when you come on, you're Mr. Chatty, or you don't know like the level. You're not reading the room, right?
So, Dave, just to catch you up, we're talking about, relationships with your partner, or meeting, or breaking down those barriers in this day and age when, you get on the bus and the guy that you're look across at is going like, yeah, what? Well, yeah, I mean, and Jim's saying, oh, start talking with them, ask them questions and stuff. I know that lots of people who bury their nose in their phone don't want to be asked questions, right? They want to keep their nose in their phone. So it's like, where's that barrier of chattiness? But
Sometimes you
before
buy a
I,
cup of coffee can get their nose out of their phone too.
but
Or
you want
bring
to know
snacks.
something?
Like you
Yes,
said,
that's a good
Josh,
idea. Right.
snacks are always a great way to, you know, break it
Bring
too.
snacks.
But what I want to ask Dave, because this is something
I wanted to go back to the first thing that we talked about today, in New Zealand. Have you ever heard, Dave, one of the things is, have you ever heard any systems around nationally, internationally, that have one provider in an ambulance and would put the patient in the back and that provider would just drive and the patient would be in the back alone?
Is that like an Uber ambulance? No, I read the article on the New Zealand thing.
Okay.
And that was, I felt bad for the medic. Any medic taking that job, I felt bad for. They were set up. They were doomed. And the interesting thing was I saw that they got rid of it. Oh, my God. In 2021, they got rid of just a paramedic or, to drive and to tech.
I mean, how can you, even on the just driver's side, you can get somebody to drive? I mean, are you that short on just drivers?
I can't, I don't know if it was municipal.
No sight of blood required.
I don't know if it was private.
Yeah.
It was certainly set up to create tremendous amount of stress for the medic and for the patient. I mean, they didn't need to have that. I mean, that was a horrible event. I'm sure you described it for everybody.
Yeah.
The final outcome, the anoxic event for the child.
Yeah. Right. And I put a link to the article as well so people can.
It was horrifying. It was horrifying. And, do I get them to the hospital? Do I stay in the back? And I mean, we can nickel and dime them about you put a non-rebreathing mask on because you can't just stay there and ventilate. The patient needs to get to a hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the funny thing is,
blow by. That's what they were doing.
It was blow by with the instructions to just wave it underneath the baby's nose, which I thought was, so we want intermittent blow by now.
Yeah.
You know what?
Dave, I'm sure you read the one line in the article where it says the paramedic should have administered oxygen by manual ventilation.
Sure.
And then
while
continue
driving.
to do so until arrival at the hospital.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to continue to do it if no one's driving the ambulance.
Well, the cup holders in front, in the front of the ambulance. So you can take a strap and put it around the cup holder and then around the steering wheel.
I don't know if they had a procedure for calling. I don't know if they had a procedure for calling for mutual assist from another ambulance or from a supervisor. I don't know what the details were because otherwise this was pretty moronic. Why would you even bother having a paramedic?
Yeah.
Why do you need a paramedic to drive? Just go there, put them in the back, and and use it as a meat wagon.
Uber.
I have to believe they had something different. I don't know all the details, but to me, that wouldn't be a job I would take.
Yeah, that's true.
But I say that, but I'm not hungry. So if they're hungry or if they need to feed somebody,
right? I'm not hungry, and I don't have the gas company knocking on my door telling me to turn my power off.
So I don't get how they can have a system like that unless they had a built-in, assist response, or maybe police would drive, or maybe they're sending police to the scene.
Something like that would have made better sense.
So you're basically saying, Dave, that there's a piece of the story that's absolutely missing because this just doesn't make logical sense in any shape or form.
It seems to me.
I would agree with that.
There's something missing.
There's something missing. Mm-hmm.
So I want to try to wrap it up, guys, today, but I want to talk about one thing, and I'm glad Dave jumped in, which I think he might give a good perspective on this. When Josh, you were talking earlier about, reading the room and kind of understanding, when you get on the ambulance with your partner and stuff. And something I wanted to mention is when you have students that come on the ambulance and them reading the room, as far as are they too chatty? Are they too quiet? Are they asking too many questions, asking the wrong questions, trying to blow off what's happening, with things, and not reading the room correctly as a student. And I think it's challenging for a lot of students when they go on the ambulance, especially for the first time, they're doing their clinical rotations, it's hard for them to read the room. Oh, Dave is falling apart on us.
COVID.
Dave, you can take the yeah. We can still see you sneezing.
Yes, I'm sure you can, but
it doesn't do away
right
with
into the microphone.
With the visual.
Wait, is it contagious that way? Hold on.
It's a computer virus.
Oh, okay. That's all right then. That's fine. So what do you think, Dave? Do you try to do anything with students, to help them sort of understand how to read the room when they get into the ambulance with a couple of paramedics or EMT preceptors or whatever, when they are, doing their first ride along, the second ride along, and kind of give them a little bit of an idea to kind of, I guess, put them at ease, and also help them make the experience, get the most out of the experience with the people that they're with.
They need to learn to develop this. It's just like any other skill. It's like, using a BVM, reading the room, and understanding.
And I agree with that.
We certainly talk about it, and you talk about it very early in the, in the process. They talk about scene survey.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's looking for a sniper on the roof, an impending tsunami, the pack of pit bulls. But there's other stuff. I mean, look, I don't need to tell you, probably, nor anybody else here, what to look for.
Are you looking for the Spanish Inquisition? Because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Mel Brooks did.
Well, okay.
He sang about it. So, what I do is I often do a pause. I say with them, wait, what are we doing here? And if we're lucky enough to have not a room, but a highway or a street, you got to read the street. I mean, where do we get killed? We get killed alongside our ambulances stepping out into traffic. And if that's our number one cause of death, and it is our number one line of duty cause of death, is stepping into traffic for us, for police, for firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are experienced. We could talk about teaching to read the room, but I don't know that it lasts. But we can make people better at it. We ask them, what do you see? And did you see this? And, I've had people say to me, I saw you stop there. Why'd you stop? I stopped.
But Dave, do you think that it's reading the room, like you said? I think it's important. Like it is a skill that people have to sort of develop over time. It's not something that most people, when you're thrown in the front of an ambulance with two experienced providers and their preceptors, and you've never been on an ambulance before, you never actually touched a live patient before, and you're nervous as all hell, not sure what to do. I think that helping you develop that skill is also up to the preceptors that you're with.
It's certainly their job.
They're just sitting in the front going, buy me coffee and whatever, which you see constantly, this idiotic thing of, well, what do I do? I'm starting my first rotation. Well, bring coffee and donuts. It's like ridiculous. You want to me, I feel like the ownership of that experience for a large part, up to the preceptor that's there, not necessarily the student. The student's never been there before. They don't have that, like you said, that skill set developed. They don't know what to expect. And you, as the experienced provider, should be somehow guiding them to say, hey, listen, if let me know any questions. No questions is a dumb question. You know, we'll review the call after it, stuff like that.
I got a question for you. You ready?
Not really.
In which lesson in your paramedic training were you taught to be a preceptor? That's the right answer already. They didn't teach you to be a preceptor. So I will tell you that in Suffolk County for over 20 years, we've had a preceptor, well over 20 years. We've had a course that if you're going to be a preceptor, you have to take the course.
Yeah.
And it's more than 10 minutes, and it's not just watching a video for 5 minutes. Now, I'm going to tell you that
fast forward to the video.
That over the course of time, I'm sure it's gotten diluted and downloaded to a video and had less impact than the dynamic one that we had first set up in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that COAMPS, you guys know about COAMPS, the accreditation thing. I don't know if you spoke about that. I don't want to go down that.
No, that's a whole podcast on its own.
Yes. One of the things they want to look at, one of the things they do look at is are the preceptors trained?
Mm.
And in a system like New York City, where you can go to, I'll say Presbyterian Hospital and get any one or two of the 190 or 200 paramedics who work there. And if you
five
what?
With 500.
You're 500?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. That's EMTs and paramedics. It's 2/3, 1/3. Yeah. Just medics. There's probably about 300 medics.
Oh, all right. It's up since the last time I dealt with them.
Yes. Yes.
When I met you.
Yeah. Well, the department's almost twice the size since you and I met.
Wow. Yeah. So anyways, so how do you get them to be trained? Does Presbyterian want to pay them to all attend a 4-hour session? I would say a 4-hour session with good explanation of what we want, strategies for doing it, scenarios where you get a chance to practice it. Because being a preceptor, first of all, some of us will stink at it no matter how much training we have. Some people are good at it without any training. But the presumption that a paramedic is trained to be a preceptor because they're a paramedic is fallacious.
Well,
let me interrupt.
I worked at places, Dave, that had formal training for people to be a preceptor. You know, they got paid extra money to be a preceptor because they went through the training. They had to stay late to go over calls with the student. They had the documentation for what went on with the student, stuff like that. At the same time,
hold on one second, Josh. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking. You got paid extra? Did they tell you? Did they pay you to stay and go over it and stuff with the students?
Not ever. No. Okay. And we constantly had students. But we're even getting further.
I interrupted Jim. I want to get back to Jim.
We're getting away from the elephant in the room, guys. Where, like now REMSCO has gone full CME accredited. There's no test, there's no studying, skills are going to be taught in, I'm not even sure where and how. We're getting away from this interpersonal interaction.
Skills are still going to be taught.
Huh?
Yeah.
Skills will be taught, but they're not. We used to have an entire department dedicated to teach, both teaching skills and the theoretical backing and the medicine behind the skills that we were learning. And that department has been closed, and now we have to seek elsewhere. It's really, and I think, and I see that.
You're talking about, Josh, you're talking about the like the reevaluation, the kind of refreshing your skill set and doing skills you don't do all the time on a mannequin and stuff like that.
Oh, we didn't even do that. Who did that? What organization did that? Unless you needed remediation, unless you really screwed something up, and they.
Every place I've worked has done that. Where once a year or every 6 months you go through the stations, and it's not necessarily the skill sheet, but you got the mannequin. There's somebody there that's proctoring the skill, and
All right. I'm sure you intubated every year for them.
Yeah, you must have.
Yeah. How many times did you put on the traction splint?
No, that would be something that once a year you would do it once a year. You did traction splint,
Okay.
and you do the start an IV. You do the IO. All that.
That's good stuff if you got somebody doing that.
That would be every year we would do it. The agency I work from in North Carolina would do it twice a year. And one of those things would be a whole scenario that these instructors would dream up some crazy ass scenario that you do, and then have 10 different things going on at once. So one year was a car accident with a pregnant lady that was eclamptic, and you're trying to figure out why she's seizing and all this type of stuff going on.
Wait, the car didn't go into a river?
No. But they probably would have. If they could have done it, they would have done it. We had one where it was a human trafficking thing where you walk in, we had 12 patients there.
Kudos to them for doing that.
And you had to and read the room. You had to figure out what was going on. You had to treat patients, your safety, who was handcuffed to a radiator, who's having an asthma attack, who was pregnant, who was a psychiatric threat. All this stuff going on, and you had to, try to read the room, get resources there, and treat people all at the same time. So, the opportunities are there. I think it comes down to a lot of times is agency budgets, and then again, like you said, Dave, the training of people to be those preceptors and those proctors and those educators within the agency in order to provide that. We talk about when I went through paramedic school, I would, like you said, Dave, you get in the ambulance with two people. They could be super experienced medics. They could be brand new medics. It didn't make a difference. I know I work with people who.
I went on the ambulance with Harpo and Benno.
I went on the ambulance with people who I respected. They were great medics, and I learned a lot from them. And I went on rotations with people that were morons, and I knew who they were, and I didn't respect them. I was just getting through it.
And you learned what not to do.
Right. And I figured that this is just 8 hours into my clinical time. I couldn't control it.
But some people would have that same experience and think that that's what you ought to do. And on top of that, some of them will become paramedics, and they'll start the rotation with, "Where are my donuts?" Really? I mean, this is
carry my bags.
Carries on. I mean, this is carry my bags, and that's what happened to them. That's what they're going to do. It's a proliferation of hazing, and waste of time, because that's what they saw. And partially, people did that because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do.
There wasn't that education to them what to do to have,
guys,
get the most out of that experience.
When I was a paramedic student and as most people go around their rotations, they do specific clinical skills in the hospital when they have to do, the introduction to life skills. Generally, you learn to intubate, on a mannequin, and then you practice in an OR and, with an anesthesiologist and a doctor and whatnot. And where I was going was a specific teaching hospital they were crowding out the slots that somebody could practice to their incoming, residents and
anesthesiology fellows.
And right. And they were getting all the experience, and I was sitting there, and literally you could go there. You're told to expect to be there for 8 hours, and you may get 30 minutes or something. And after being passed over, I finally went to the doctor who was the head of the department, and I said, "Look, I need some time too." And he said, "Well, these people are going to be operating. They're much more important than our doctors, And I said, "Yes." And I said, "You know who I am?" I said, "I'm the guy who's going to show up at your house when somebody calls an ambulance for you or your loved one, and I'm going to have to intubate them. Now, who do you want to know that skill? 30 minutes. For the next hour, I did nothing but I think I got like 10 tubes.
That was a great
Yeah.
strategy.
Sometimes you have to be, you have to, represent, but at the same time, that same scenario is going to happen when you're the new guy on the bus and you have somebody who's cranky, arguing with their wife, or just doesn't want to be there anymore and says, carry my bags and get me donuts. Some of this best skill practice that I got, and some of the times that I had were when I was in the 911 system, is when I got, as an EMT, backing up my own units who knew I was in paramedic school. And they would turn around and say, Josh, you're a paramedic now. And I'm like, oh my God, I just started. Start this line. Give this drug. Give this, do this, do this. And they would be my preceptors because they cared what I learned, because I was going to be backing them up and eventually their partners. So they didn't want, me to come onto the scene and not know anything. And they knew what was happening in school. So you got to stick up for yourself. You got to get these skills. But I sort of want to push this back to that interpersonal, situation where somebody's sitting there with their nose in their phone. How do you break, how do you get to know your partner in this day and age if everybody is basically, it used to be if you were working with somebody you really just didn't want to be with, or you were in a mood that you weren't that social, you bring a book on board. Now everybody brings phones and they're addicted to them. How do you break through that?
Well, Dave, I don't know if you want to try to answer that, because I want to wrap it up a little bit. We've been going for a little bit here.
I see that you're a little over an hour already.
Yeah. So Dave, I don't know if you want to try to.
I don't have any magic for that. I mean, it's the same thing with the guy who had his face in the books, or they're reading the newspaper. You start talking to them, and you know what? Sometimes you can have a partner you wish they would just shut the heck up and stop espousing the crap that they're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's a blessing to have somebody who's going to do that.
Right.
So I mean, that's what you get. Your partner is your partner for the day.
Yeah.
For the day or longer.
Or longer.
Let me wrap it up, guys. Dave, I appreciate you jumping in. You got in here a little late. That's fine. At least we got another voice in here for a little bit. We appreciate everybody showing up. And don't forget, like I said, go to squadia.com. Use Squadia EMS as a promo code. You'll get an additional 30 days on top of their 14 free days that they already have. So, all right, guys, that's it. As always, I am Jim Hoffman.
Josh Knapp.
And I'm the late Dave Brenner. Oh, wait.
No. You're very much with us, Dave Brenner.
All right,
we are very happy you joined us today.